Alcohol is a depressant, and so you might notice you have a bit more of a positive outlook. Maybe. So when you're not drinking alcohol, you're actually more likely to make more nourishing decisions about food and hydration. Plus, you're not going to be dehydrated to begin with, so you'll be better hydrated. But so there's actually some research on this. It's very interesting. When we make healthier choices, it leads to other healthier choices. Also, when we decide that we're worth it, we're valuable, and we resolve all those unresolved, maybe childhood traumas and things like that make us feel unworthy, when we address those, we make better decisions. So, and better meaning healthier. So, no judgment, just decisions. Welcome to the Woman's Doctor podcast, helping empower women to embrace their body and soul's full potential. I'm your host, Dr. Trevor Cates, and after 22 years of working with patients, I found the answers to our health struggles are much deeper than most people realize. To help explore this, I'm interviewing colleagues and other wellness experts to get to the root cause so women can realize their true beauty and be informed decision makers for themselves and their loved ones. Welcome to the Woman's Doctor podcast. I'm Dr. Trevor Cates, and in case you haven't heard, it's Dry January. So today I am spending this podcast talking about health risks that come along with drinking alcohol, things you'll likely see and feel if you stop drinking for a month, and tips to set you up for success. Dry January started in 2013 as a public health campaign by the UK nonprofit Alcohol for Change. And 10 years later, it has become a global trend with people around the world avoiding alcohol for the entire month of January, and some will even continue into February and beyond. I gave up alcohol over a year ago, not because I or anyone around me thought I was an alcoholic. I was more of what people call a social drinker. But one day I decided to stop for a while, and then I began to realize that alcohol had created more pain and confusion in my life than it was worth. And I was concerned about the health effects that alcohol would have on my life long term. And I want to live another 50 years. I'm turning 50 in February, and I want to spend the next 50 years of my life super healthy and fully alive. And I felt that I was using alcohol sometimes to take the edge off or kind of unwind, but it was really an excuse, a way of numbing, which wasn't really fully living. So I've gotten a lot of benefits emotionally and physically since stopping alcohol. But the other things that I've noticed since stopping alcohol is that my friends or other people around me seem to feel the need to justify their drinking behaviors with me. Now, that's perfectly fine. There's no need to do that. But I think that's because that many people wonder whether alcohol really is playing a positive role in their lives or not. And they're sort of like weighing the pros and cons, the risks and benefits. So I want to make sure that you're aware of all the possible things that alcohol can create or health issues that it can bring up, and also the positive side of things that can happen if you cut alcohol out, even if it's just for a month. So Dry January is a perfect opportunity to take a look at the role that alcohol plays in your life. And this may lead to lasting change, but either way, it's good to know how it feels to avoid alcohol for a month. Hey, I get it. I grew up with a father who was a winemaker, and I know what a glamorous life it can look like on the outside. But there are some problems with drinking alcohol. So here are some of associated health problems associated with drinking alcohol. First of all, it dehydrates the body. So you probably have noticed when you drink alcohol, you have to go to the bathroom more often. And that's because it works like a diuretic. It is pulling water hydration out of your body, so it dehydrates you. It's part of the reason why you wake up with a hangover oftentimes. So it's part of it is that dehydration effect. So not only is dehydration not good for your body in a lot of ways and your brain and so many different things, but it can show up on your skin. So if you are dehydrated from the inside out, it can show up on your skin. So I know I talk a lot about skin on the Woman's doctor podcast. So I want to make sure that we tie this into skin. So definitely alcohol, not so great for the skin. The second thing is it disrupts our sleep. So while you might drink a nightcap, so-called nightcap, and it might make you feel like you're falling asleep more easily, it actually is disrupting the certain types of sleep, especially REM sleep. So those types of sleep are more restorative. We're not getting if we drink alcohol. And that's even if we just drink a couple glasses of wine or something, it can still disrupt your sleep. The third thing is that it irritates the stomach lining. So it is very acidic. So it can be very damaging to the stomach lining, which can create problems over time for people. This is more acute, but even with chronic issues, it can lead to some more problems. It also disrupts, the fourth thing is it disrupts the gut microbiome. So think about, we use alcohol and hand sanitizer and other places to be an antiseptic. It kills off bacteria, and it does that to the gut as well. And even though the type of alcohol we use in hand sanitizers isn't exactly what with the alcohol that people drink, it does actually kill off bacteria. And I just heard the other day that someone said that tequila is a probiotic. I don't know where that came from, but tequila has alcohol, so it's still going to have the same effect. There's no type of alcohol that's going to be exempt from this. The fifth thing is that it increases inflammation in the body. Inflammation is one of the big root causes for many health issues, including skin problems. The sixth thing is it exposes you to a toxin. Yes, alcohol is toxic, hence the hangover. Acetaldehyde is the toxic compound that results from the body metabolizing alcohol. So acetaldehyde is a toxin. Your body makes it from alcohol. So yes, it is toxin. So all that talk I'm doing about helping you guys reduce toxins in your life, alcohol is one of those that you want to think about. The seventh thing is that it disrupts our mood and behavior. Now, we've all experienced that, having maybe too many glasses or whatever, that people start to cry, they start to get emotional, they get angry. So we see that it impacts our mood and behavior. And that's because of the way it impacts the brain. Oftentimes we see things that happen and we don't really think about why it's happening, but it is impacting the way that our brain works. The eighth thing is that it makes it harder to think clearly. Now, again, that's another obvious one because we know that drinking alcohol can make us fuzzy. That's why people should not drink and go drive a car or operate vehicles. And so it does make it harder to think clearly. So good. You're not drinking and driving, hopefully, but if you are drinking and then having an important conversation or standing in front of people and saying something personal, you want to be able to think clearly. So just saying that's kind of a downside. The ninth thing is it suppresses the immune system, making you more likely to get sick. So in a time in January when lots of things are going around and it's easy to catch, lots of viruses and things, you do not want to suppress your immune system. The 10th thing is that it interferes with coordination. So we're more accident prone. Now, again, this can be something a lot of people know about, but it can be important, especially if you're recovering from some sort of injury, you already have aches and pains, you don't want to be clumsy. None of us want to fall and break something or do something that is kind of awkward. The 11th thing is it numbs in a way that temporarily avoids addressing mental health issues and unresolved trauma. This is a big one, and I think this is one that is often overlooked in our society because of the way that people socialize drinking alcohol. But numbing is a way to avoid, which a lot of people do because they have pain. And while that is one way to deal with things, it's not going to make it go away. It's only temporary because until you actually address that trauma, it's still going to come back. And with alcohol, sometimes it actually backfires on us. And over time, and that's more from an acute perspective, but over time, it can lead to more challenging health conditions like heart issues, including arrhythmias, stroke, high blood pressure, also liver disease and different types of liver disease, which is actually what took my father's life, my father who was a winemaker, pancreatitis, cancer. It also affects the brain and can lead to long-term memory and mood problems. So I know a lot of times people with mental health problems drink alcohol, but it actually worsens the problem. So again, and I think if it's just one of those things where we can address mental health in many other ways rather than numbing. And I know there are a lot of other ways to numb. Alcohol is just one of them, but that's what we're talking about today in Dry January. And while drinking a glass of wine or cocktail may feel good in the moment, it does take a toll on your health. So no shaming here. If you're not ready to give it up, when you're ready, maybe come back and listen to this podcast. But I think when I would start to drink, the actual thought of having a drink was better than the reality of that. You may be there, you may not, but here are some of the positive things that you may notice as a result of avoiding alcohol. So if you're doing the Dry January, you may notice some of these things. First of all, no hangovers. That's a good one, right? Even a glass of wine, just one glass, or one beer, one cocktail can cause you to wake up with a headache or feeling fuzzy, and that is from the alcohol. The second thing is you can experience better sleep. As I mentioned, alcohol interferes with the sleep. You can also, as a result of that, the third thing is you can have more energy. And that's not just because of getting better good night's sleep, higher quality sleep. It's also because your blood sugar is going to be more balanced and also your brain's going to be working better. And you're not going to be spending so much energy trying to stay coordinated and focus on things that you don't really need focus on if you don't have the alcohol in your system. So the fourth thing is that you'll be able to possibly drop some pounds. I noticed when I stopped drinking alcohol, it's not why I did it, but I noticed that especially like the little teeny bits of love handles I had on my sides, not that I was really concerned about it, but those went away. So those little benefits can be helpful. The fifth thing is the skin can glow more. Your skin, you probably will notice it. You won't have the dehydration. You won't have the accelerated collagen loss as a result of the elevated blood glucose that people get from drinking alcohol. And you won't have that inflammation. So people with rosacea in particular are really susceptible to alcohol, especially red wine. And also, I certainly noticed it whenever I would have red wine, and that was my dad's specialty was Pinot Noir. So red wine, immediately red cheeks. So rosacea is one, but also eczema, acne, a lot of these inflammatory skin conditions are worsened by alcohol. The sixth thing that you may notice is a more positive outlook. So alcohol is a depressant, and so you might notice you have a bit more of a positive outlook. Maybe. Number 7 is better decisions about nourishment. So when you're not drinking alcohol, you're actually more likely to make more nourishing decisions about food and hydration. Plus, you're not going to be dehydrated to begin with, so you'll be better hydrated. But so there's actually some research on this. It's very interesting. When we make healthier choices, it leads to other healthier choices. Also, when we decide that we're worth it, we're valuable, and we resolve all those unresolved, maybe childhood traumas and things like that make us feel unworthy, when we address those, we make better decisions. So, and better meaning healthier. So no judgment, just decisions. And the 8th thing is if you're a woman, and maybe if you're a man, I haven't really talked to men about this, but for women, we tend to get night sweats at certain times. Sometimes women in their 30s, 40s, but especially like mid 40s through perimenopause and menopause. And we might notice if we're not drinking that those happen to go away. So hot flashes and night sweats. The ninth thing that you might notice is clearer thinking and being more in touch with your emotions. And sometimes that could be a good thing, right? But especially if we have a good therapist that can help us work through those emotions that come up. The 10th thing is better communication. Because we're thinking more clearly, because we're less emotional, we tend to have better communication, which can actually improve relationships. And the 11th thing is I noticed being more resilient, having better immune system, being more resilient against emotional upsets and things like that. And then the 12th thing that I have on my list is lower blood pressure. So for people who tend to have high blood pressure, you could start to notice your blood pressure start to come back to normal. Okay, so now I want to share with you some steps to set you up for success, because it's easy enough to talk about how we shouldn't do something, but sometimes it's harder to make the change. The first tip I have for you is to keep alcohol out of your home. Now, I know that's not always easy. That's what we do in our home. But at the very least, take the alcohol that you have for the rest of January, or however long you're doing dry January, and put it somewhere out of reach. I actually recommend to do this if you're trying to avoid sugar or other things that may not be so great for your health. Put it somewhere so it's not so easy, because if you have it in your kitchen, in the pantry, or somewhere that it's easy to reach, you're not going to have that moment to stop and think, do I really need to have that cocktail right now? So put it somewhere that's out of reach. And if you have kids in the home, that's always a good idea anyway. The second thing to set you up for success is to address any emotions that may come up. So if you do not currently have a therapist or a good emotional support system, then you might want to look for that, because sometimes, not always, some things can come up when you if you're used to doing like the kind of numbing behavior of having that glass of wine to unwind or something like that, and you don't have that, there might be some emotions that come up. This is actually a good thing, because until we resolve those emotions and that unresolved trauma, it's going to keep coming up. So this actually is a good thing, but you need to set yourself up for this in case it does happen. That doesn't mean that it is going to, but it might, especially if it's become an item of comfort for you. So the third thing is to get outdoors. I love getting out in nature. It boosts our serotonin, which helps us feel good. And if we do it with other people, it can boost our oxytocin and other feel-good hormones and neurotransmitters. So doing things like walking or skiing, biking, swimming, and you can do these activities when you're alone. If you're alone and you're kind of thinking, what can I do instead? Get outdoors and get moving and get out into nature. It's very healing. Between the exercise and nature, there's a lot of benefit that we know research shows in both of those, and it actually does help your neurotransmitters and your hormones. And another thing to do is to get creative. So maybe you're not up for exercising or getting outdoors, the weather's not great, then get creative. Drawing, writing, knitting, sewing, making music, pottery, like a pottery class, take a class, especially if you want to be more social. But these are all things that you could do on your own. And then for things where you want to get more social and interact with people, you can play games is another idea. Now, I would recommend playing games that don't typically involve drinking. If you're trying to do a drinking game without alcohol, it might be a bit of a trigger. I wouldn't recommend it. So play games that don't involve alcohol. This is a great thing to do when people come over. Charades is a really fun one that can be impromptu. You don't really need a board or cards or anything like that. There are lots of apps and fun games that you can do with your family or friends instead of, having a party with drinking. So the sixth tip is to go out for a movie night or any other place where alcohol is not served. Typically, theaters don't serve alcohol. Now, I went to college in New Orleans, and I know about the theaters where the margaritas and all kinds of things. So I know that there are places where some theaters have alcohol, but most of the time, theaters don't. There are other places that don't serve alcohol, so that way it's just not even an option or a temptation. The seventh tip is to keep your blood sugar balanced. When your blood sugar is more balanced, you're not going to have that you're less likely to have that dip in your mood and your energy, which is one of the things that can trigger people to want a cocktail. So doing things that making sure that you're not eating excess amounts of sugar or a high carb diet, getting plenty of protein and healthy fats. A lot of the things that I recommend in my books, Natural Beauty Reset and Clean Skin from Within, all of those things will help keep your blood sugar balanced and help with cravings, reducing cravings overall. And the eighth tip is to find healthier substitutions. So now I want to share with you, that's my eighth and final tip. And so I want to share with you some ideas on healthier substitutions. I also have some recipes in my blog If you go to thespadoctor.com/blog, so thespadr.com/blog, you'll find some recipes. But I'm going to go ahead and share some of that with you right now. So one of the recipes I have is a citrus thyme spritzer. So you just get a glass of sparkling water, add a few sprigs of thyme, fresh thyme, and a couple dashes of ground ginger, or you can use fresh ginger root. Squeeze in some lime, orange, lemon, whatever citrus you like, and then you can garnish with a couple slices of citrus, and it makes a nice festive glass. And also another one that I recommend is my apple cinnamon fizz, where you have a glass of sparkling apple juice and then add in a cinnamon stick, a sprig of rosemary. You can also add in a teaspoon or so of pomegranate seeds and garnish with a slice of apple. So this is a really nice one, and the flavor combination is fantastic. You also could try something warm, like an herbal tea, hot apple cider, or some hot cocoa with some peppermint. And there are lots of other options out there. And if nothing else, just have good old-fashioned filtered water, or make it sparkling and add, a little juice of lemon or something. So you can put all of that in a festive glass if you want, or just have it in something simple. I hope these tips help set you up for success for the remainder of Dry January, whether you're doing it all month long and you've been doing it, or you're just getting started, or you're thinking about doing it in the future. I encourage you to keep doing it even past January. It gets easier and the rewards are worth it. And I'll see you next time on the Woman's Doctor podcast. If you enjoyed this episode of the Woman's Doctor podcast, be sure to share it with the women in your life and rate and review the show. And to learn all about balancing your hormones, join us for the Hormones, Health, and Harmony 9-part documentary series at hormoneseries.com.